According to a Bloomberg report, Tesla is apparently working on a revamped, updated Model Y, and that mass production of this will happen by mid-2024. But is this fake news or not? Well, Tesla China responded immediately saying that this is false information, so take that as you may. For many of us, it is a bit of a surprise this is going to happen sooner rather than later. In today's show, we're going to explore the potential impact to Tesla's Model Y sales. Tesla has got to hit this right or else. And what about Osborne? Why was this info leaked if that is what happened? I've got Brian White joining us. He has his own YouTube channel called MyTeslaWeekend. He's amazing. This guy's brilliant. I love his channel. Many people do. Thank you for joining me, Brian.
Great to be here. This is a big topic and I'm very excited about it because, new products, new services, new offerings, anything like that really gets us going. And there's been a lot of speculation on this. So let's figure out what's going on, huh?
Yeah, let's do that. So, as you know, Model Y, this is the project called Juniper. We had the Model 3 refresh happening called Highland. That was released in October. And so people are expecting that Model Y Juniper would be updated, but many of us thought it won't happen until the fourth quarter or second half of next year. So this is news from Bloomberg. They say Tesla plans to revamp of their smash hit Model Y from the China plant. So there is a mass production. This is the thing that's really interesting. They're saying may start by mid-2024, and it's going to have more obvious exterior and interior changes. And it's going to be from the Shanghai plant. And then, of course, it says, according to people familiar with the matter. So they didn't really name anybody of note. This is kind of just rumors. Domestic rivals accelerate product launches and amid heated competition. So they're saying that the reason might be because they're getting competition from China. Tesla is currently conducting preparation work in China for its refreshed Model Y. Mass production will start as mid-2024. People said asking not to be identified because the information is public. So established in 2019, the factory now produces half of Tesla's global deliveries. And then the Model Y was released in 2020. Very popular. Now is not only the top-selling EV, it's a top-selling car in the world. And so this is very important to Tesla. They say here that China accounted for 75% of Tesla's overall sales in the country. So Brian, this is critical, right? If they're going to do a upgraded model, they have to do this right. Tesla China came out and said that it was false info. What's your gut telling you?
So the sources familiar with the matter, that's very, very vague. I would like to know who they are because you and I are also sources who are also familiar with the matter, and we don't have inside information. They didn't say insiders. They didn't say employers. Maybe they mean parts suppliers. And if that's the case, parts suppliers would see a request for, a engineering type prototypes to start testing them. But that doesn't mean it's imminent. And imminent is also a bit, a bit wiggly on its own. So who are the sources and are they actually credible? We cannot know. And I take big issue with that right there. Saying that they are preparing now to do a refresh also doesn't mean anything. The vehicles are always in flux. There are always changes coming. It could just be that they're getting ready to do bigger castings or slightly different castings or any of those things. But they could, it could be something like just add the infotainment to the back. Maybe that's all they're going to do so that they have more parts in common with the Model 3. So, of course, they're doing preparation for the next model. They're always doing preparation for the next model, and model years don't change the way they do with other car companies. Other car companies will save up all their little iterative changes for the next model year. They don't. The only changes they'll do live on the fly are like repairs of critical flaws. And of course, you're going to have to do that. But if it's a little improvement to the trim or to any of those things, Tesla just does them now. Why are we waiting? Let's just do it. So that's very helpful. Now, when you said it's the best-selling car, what was pointed out to me is not only does Tesla make the 4 most American cars for now by content, it'll soon be 5 because the We know the battery is American made in the Cybertruck. We know the motors are made in Texas as well. We know all that stuff is local. But what a lot of people don't realize is it's also one of the most Chinese made cars. It's very localized. In Germany, it is a very local product. So in every market where they make them, they're making them local. And that helps with costs. It helps with logistics. It helps curry favor within those countries because they don't see you as an outsider, just coming to collect money and dump your goods, but bringing jobs and support as well. So I think all of that is, helpful. And it's what's made it part of what's made it so successful and compelling. The last thing I would say on it is they said, well, they have to do something different because the competition is coming. Well, yes, but we've been hearing that for 20 years and they haven't yet had the decency to arrive. Maybe that's something they should work on instead. But these other cars we're seeing are not necessarily direct competitors. They're either not as good or not as cheap. And if you've got a choice between a $45,000 Model Y or a $45,000 Zeekr, we know the answer. Most buyers are going to pick the Tesla. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that this is a not a very credible news article. For Tesla to do a revised Model Y, which they will. That's why they can say something like this. It's going to happen. They're going to take their time. They're going to do it right. This is important. So if you look at this next part of the article, they say that the first batch of the newest Model Ys will be made from the second phase of Tesla's Shanghai facility, which will suspend production for around a week during the New Year holiday for a partial upgrade. But that's what they do every year. They always have this, suspension of a production line for a week. Doesn't seem long enough, too, by the way, if this is going to be about, preparing for more adjustments will have to be made prior to mass production, of course. But they're kind of alluding that week is because of preparation for this, which is weird. And then they even say that, the Model Y will have more obvious exterior and interior changes than the most recent update in October. So they did a small, tiny update in October, new wheel design, ambient lighting. So again, nothing new here. Oh, it's going to have a new exterior. It's going to have a new interior. Yeah. So I don't know. This just didn't seem credible.
The reason I'm saying it's not credible is because we haven't seen them road testing. If there's one thing we know from modern social media is that you cannot road test a car without someone seeing it. And where is it? Unless it looks so radically different from any Tesla that we're familiar with, which I don't think is going to be the case, I think it will be a very distinctive and subtle redesign like we saw with the Model 3. So where's the road testing? Road testing, you will generally see 3 to 6 months in advance of the vehicles being sold. You have to test them. You just have to. And it's not one of those things where you can just put more of them on the road to do it quicker. That can save you some time, but you still need the time. The best way to, you can't get 9 women pregnant to have a baby in 1 month. It doesn't work that way. And so the to suggest that the changeover is happening in next month in a matter of weeks does not sit right with me. I think the rumors would have already told us that that was coming. I absolutely believe it could happen next year, but like you said at the top of the show, second half of the year, maybe fourth quarter, even that might be optimistic. And and the idea that they would shut down completely for 1 week and just roll out a new car doesn't fit with anything we know from what Tesla's done in the past. I had a theory months ago that when they would switch to the Highland, they would do one line first while keeping the other line running to prevent the kind of problem they had with the Plaid, with the S and X refreshes, where taking the only line down that made them, and then there was a problem. Now we just don't have any production. These cars are too important to the roadmap. They're too important to total production and deliveries to risk that. So what I think we would see is one line continuing to make the current version of the Model Y while they're tooling the second line and getting it up to speed, so that once it's up to speed, then they shut off production of the other one. Because a small, a few $1,000s price difference is all it takes to get fleet buyers interested in taking basically last year's model.
Yeah. I mean, so first of all, Tesla Model Y is outselling everything. In fact, it's actually doing so well that it's outselling the Model 3 Highland. And they priced the Model Y so close to the Model 3 Highland, despite the refresh of that. Model Y is just knocking it out of the park still. So there's really no indication that they needed to do this immediately, way ahead of schedule. But I'm a little worried, right? Brian, do you think that there might have been Osborne? This is the effect that if people hear that there's going to be an update to a new product, they're going to stop buying the current product and wait it out. And in a way, that kind of like threw my red flags up when they said, oh, it's going to be mid-year. That's so quick. People are going to stop buying from January to June. Do you think this info was leaked on purpose? And what would be the effect to Osborne?
I think their response, their rapid response, was an effort to prevent the Osborne effect. So for those who don't know, Osborne Electronics had this great little graphics card or computer component or something like that. And the CEO came out and said, yeah, this one's good, but in 6 months, we're going to have one that's twice as powerful for half the price. And all the customers said, oh, well, I just won't buy it until then. And their sales completely stopped and they went out of business. That next card never arrived. So the concern is, if we announce that the new Model Y is coming and maybe it's even going to be cheaper, why would you buy last year's model for full price or more than full price rather than wait? And I think that's a very real consideration. I know a number of people right now don't want to buy the Model 3 because they want to wait for next year to get the new version. And I can't blame them. That's got to be a motivating factor for Tesla to get production spooled up in Fremont. I also think that it'd be unlike Tesla to work on spooling up more than one new vehicle at a time. Cybertruck is done. That means they can move on to the Model 3 refresh in Fremont. And then after that, we can think about the Model Y refresh. And the timeline just doesn't make sense to me. Now, I know in our other show we're going to do over on my channel, we're going to discuss what the Model Y refresh could be. And I'm very excited about that because there's a lot of possibilities, and we'll discuss how many of them actually make sense, if any, and go from there. But yeah, I don't know. What is your thought on the Osborne effect?
Yeah, I think it's a real deal. I think that's why I do think that this might be malicious, that somebody was leaking this out as soon as possible. And like we said, I'm so happy that Tesla China steps up right away and squashes it. There has been certainly situations where China came up and said something, and then it turned out to be true, the rumor. This is one I don't believe is going to be true. It's important. This is the most important product that Tesla has. They need to defend it. And they cannot let some little thing like this get out of control, as we just did in our live stream. We're reporting all these stories where one little news story could get out of control and take over. And I think that, the reason why it might make sense for them to increase or to accelerate the release of the Model Y upgrade, some people are calling it Project Juniper, is because once you've created the Model 3, and they said the Model 3 Highland is 50% more different parts than previous, it's to Tesla's advantage if they can standardize all of these parts and supply chain. And so you'd want to take everything you made a difference in Model 3, apply it to the Model Y, and so you can have one part that applies to both lines, and then you're saving so much money. The cost savings is significant. And so that's where some people are saying, if they can roll this out sooner than later, the savings will be significant. But I just don't think that they're going to rush it. And I like what you just said. I think that the staggering of the focus on new product lines, that makes the most sense.
Now, what I would say, now, I don't like conspiracy theories, but I do have a point I wanted to raise that supports your conclusion, which is that when you've got in China, they don't have the same freedom of the press that we do. So you can't publish a negative story and just assume you will be free of consequences. But you can publish this story. It's not negative. You could argue it's positive. This is positive false news. And is it positive? Well, it depends on your perspective. Tesla China doesn't think so. They wanted to rush out and set the record straight and say, look, it's not. It's not coming yet. Hold on to that story until the appropriate time. But imagine trying to win that lawsuit saying, how dare you say that we have a new car when we don't? It'd be impossible to prove damages. And I think that's, if you were going to be devious, that would be a very clever way to do it.
Okay. Well, again, this is a non-article. Sources in the know, so it wasn't anything credible. They talked about because of the shutdown in the week before the new year, that somehow related to this massive production line shutdown that they need to do if they did it. And then they're talking about, oh, this is going to have obvious exterior and interior changes. That was it. And I like what you said at the earlier beginning, that if this came from a supplier, that has a lot more weight to it. But even then, timing could be way off because they need to be talking to suppliers now for even a year from now or 2 years from now. They need to be talking to them now. So yeah, absolutely. I rate this nothing. So you and I are going to do another show on this topic, Model Y Juniper, but in your show, we're going to be talking about the different parts, the 4680, maybe the 48 volt system. What are the what are the new things we might see in the Model Y Juniper? How would you redesign it? What parts of it will be the same as the Model 3 and so forth? So thank you. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate you. Follow him on his channel, My Tesla Weekend. Thanks, everybody. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.